for this creative eye project, one of the first things that you're going to want to do is put your piece of nice Bristol paper, again, we're using one of the nicer sheets, onto your drawing board, and then tape it on again. Okay, and you want to put tape around each corner just so it stays and doesn't move around. We're going to be using watercolor for this project, and it's a good idea to just get it stuck to the board. Okay, so, and then the next thing that you want to do is you're going to draw the circle for your eye. And I want it to take up a decent amount of space. I don't want a small drawing of an eye in a corner or anything. You could do two eyes. So if you want to do two eyes, you can place them, at each side, maybe being a little bit smaller than this. But generally, again, you want to take up a decent amount of space when you're doing this. And you should be thinking about what you want to do for the end project as well. So I'm going to go through the same steps that I do in previous, in the eye drawing project tutorial about how to draw an eye. Right, I'm going to follow those same steps, right? But it's very important to get a fairly large space for this project, okay? Before moving on to the details and whatnot. So let's go on to that. So once I've gotten the basic layout of my eye, I'm going to start to have a little fun and play around with stuff. And I already kind of started drawing some water welling up in the eye, but you can really go in any direction. Take a look at the ideas sheet, some of the other examples I have for you. And I started, if I started playing around with the idea of eyelashes, it kind of occurred to me to potentially do some branches maybe coming off of the eyes. So I started, I'm going to start drawing some tree branches kind of coming off the eyes. And again, look at how lightly I am drawing this. You don't want to get too out of control with it, too dark. Having branches kind of crisscross coming up and, potentially going in different directions, playing along with the eyebrows, going into the eyelashes, trees coming up. And I'm just kind of lightly sketching out. This is kind of like the doodle part where you're just kind of doodling different ideas. Okay? Maybe I get another tree over here. Do I want to have more kind of trees standing up? I don't know. Kind of coming up in that direction. Maybe I want to have birds kind of flying around. So I'm just going to kind of with some of the wings of birds coming across. Maybe there's a bird up here. Just kind of getting some of the shapes down of what birds might look like flying around, right? Kind of coming across and then having some birds sitting, on these branches. So putting some birds around. Maybe there's one over here. And, I'm just sketching out ideas, okay? And if you want to look up something, pull up your keyboard to come up with some other ideas, to kind of, work some stuff out. If you have something you'd like to do, go ahead, Google it, search it, look up for different ideas eyes with designs around them. One of my other thoughts was potentially to do, now that I'm looking at this, maybe I want to put some buildings in here, right? So maybe I want to draw in here a cityscape of some sort, right? So I'm just kind of, coming up with ideas. Maybe it's Chicago skyline if that's what you kind of want. But I'm just kind of, playing around with different ideas. You're supposed to have fun with this part. And just I'm lightly sketching out some of my thoughts on that. What should I have, this kind of going into something down here? Maybe I can do another eye down here, under my water that looks like a fish. So down below my larger eye with the water kind of falling down, I started, I came up with that. I was thinking of drawing a fish, and I've always thought that eyes can easily look a lot like fish, especially ones that kind of have the pointed elements down here, or even birds. Like this can look like a beak, right? The inside of someone's eye. But how do you make it look like a fish? Kind of, have extending the tail kind of off of, the back end. Maybe that even starts to look like a little bit like a leaf coming off, which is a cool idea. And then giving it like, fins, on the bottom edges, right? Fishes often have really large eyeballs. So I'm just kind of like, playing around with the idea of having a fish kind of swimming around down here, and then, maybe there's some bubbles, and maybe that's the direction you want your whole drawing to go in. It's, up to you where you kind of take this. Thinking of like scales on the fish now within the eye, but just that you're kind of playing around, having fun, doing doodles. It could just be simple designs that you're doing around the eye. Okay, now that you have a basic, very lightly drawn layout of your piece, you've worked out maybe some of the design elements that you might like to have. Like I said, I added an eye down in the bottom that's going to be kind of looking like a fish. The details of all of this don't need to be perfect right now. It's just a very lightly sketched example of what you might want it to end up being. How I play with this space over here, I haven't decided yet. Okay, how I work in some of the details, I haven't decided yet. But I'm going to start laying out some of my basic lightly, very light colors, using a lot more water than just pure pigment with my watercolors into the eye, surrounding areas, and down in here. And then I'll do another layer, and I might start to kind of play around with movement in this space at that time. But look at the other video to show you how to kind of use watercolor. Hopefully you've gotten some practice and you feel more confident coming into these next steps. So good luck. Really quick though, before you jump in, make sure to take your eraser and just clean up some of the sketching marks that were laid out when you were kind of drafting this, okay? It's not the end of the world. Also, if you end up erasing some of the stuff that you want to end up keeping, that's okay, all right? It's just a good idea to clean up a little bit before you start adding color so that you don't have, as many marks showing up in the background that you might not want to keep, okay? Just clean it up a little bit with an eraser, and then you're good to go. Okay, so this is a good place to stop. That was a good day's work, good period's worth of work. Something I want to point out is if you overwork an area, get a little bit too wet, keep rubbing in the same area, you're going to start pulling up some of the paper. So again, it's a good idea to actually just do some layering, get some of the basic, colors that you want down, one nice light layer. And then now I'm going to, the next day I'm going to come in, I'm going to intensify a lot of these colors. And you could just give it like a little bit, put a fan on it to dry it out a little bit if you want and come back to it. a few minutes later. But this is a good place to stop for a period, take a break, think about what you've done, some of the things that you might want to add to it. Time to think about stuff lets it marinate. So when you come back to it, you have a better idea of what you want to do. So hopefully everything went well. If you have any questions, of course, you can email me, and I'll see you for the next session.